So good morning, everyone, and I'm glad that we're all back again to talk about our monthly commentary this time. Sumpoorn, which shows our sales activity for MSMEs, has come in at 0.57 for May. And this is up from the 0.56 level that it was in April. So it's still in the zone of mild expansion. But one very interesting, the streak that it has had since last November of showing that each month has been higher than the month in the preceding year. So, for instance, last May, this number was 0.55 for Sumpoorn, and now it is 0.57. So, the feeling that we have had for the last few months, there is a buoyancy in economic activity of small businesses seems to be holding so far. So call it resilience or call it buoyancy, whichever way you want to see it, that's what it is. We've also been tracking 10 major states, the indices for that. And I just wanted to point out two states which are standing at the top. One is Telangana and the second is Uttar Pradesh. Telangana actually for May came out with 0.62 and Uttar Pradesh came with a 0.6. So they are doing better than the national average, which is a good sign. Other states like Maharashtra, Gujarat, almost in sync with the average zone. So coming to what has been happening and, trying to put some perspective, what is going to come ahead. I think for us, the beginning is always the monsoon, because in India, for the economy, monsoon is a big event, and above average rainfall was forecast, which was good. Monsoon began earlier than usual. So May, we actually finished, the entire country was covered by June 29th, which was 9 days earlier than usual. So May saw a lot of monsoon activity, then there was a break. So the plus and minuses of both sides of such, let's say, unusual weather pattern is that it's great that we have Kharif sowing has improved dramatically because of the early monsoon. But on the other side, you also have, intensity of flash floods. We're talking about urban resilience. Mumbai, Bangalore, Delhi, all have had their spots of making it difficult for people to get to work and so on. And now we are seeing landslides. We are seeing devastation also in Assam in the northeast, which is impacting crops. And we are seeing flooding in cities, and we are seeing landslides in the north, in Himachal and Uttarakhand. These are also plus and minuses that we have to factor in as we are going forward, with the climate change that has been happening. But all in all, we're looking at a bright outlook. We're looking at rural demand again holding good. Last year, we had the third advance estimates that came out for crops for last year. It's a record output for rice, 8% year-on-year growth, record output for wheat as well. So we have a good, buffer on food grains. I think rural demand will still be holding up quite strong. I think I'll stop out here and ask Narsi sir to come in with a sectoral industry kind of a view on what has been happening and how he sees this going ahead.
I wanted to just look at it as more from whether there is an uptick in the private consumption, household expenditure, and while Mr. Suman will speak about credit, I would just want us to look at from 2-3 perspectives. First thing that looks encouraging was the Retailer Association survey. And May recorded a fairly good growth of 7%, 3% recorded in the corresponding May 24. And there seems to have been all-round uptick. So I looked at QSR segment, which is a very good indicator of private consumption, people just going out and eating and ordering the pizzas, etc. So 10% growth there. Consumer durables growing by 8%, furniture by 8%, apparel growing by 7%. So basically indicating that there is some confidence. People generally indulge in all of this when they feel a little more comfortable that their employability or employment is not so much at risk, and they're looking forward to things positively. Slightly when I come to a breakdown of it, it was very interesting that South recorded the highest uptick of 9% compared to West, which typically I thought would, show a good number. So 9% versus 7%, and East was at 4%, which is the lowest. So why, what, we could probably look at much later, but overall sentiment is good.
This is the retail kind of growth that you're
pure retail. And this is based on the survey of the participants by the Retailer Association. So we're just tying the two together based on what we see in Sumpoorn and this as well. But when I come to auto, the auto growth has been rather, I wouldn't say very great, nor too very low, but it was at 5.7%. And that in May, and now we've got the June numbers. I wouldn't want to talk about it yet. We can do it as we progress along. And SIAM data also shows that two-wheeler went up, but personal vehicles, passenger vehicles went down. June has been very mixed. So sector still is not as robust as in terms of the growth numbers as one would want it to be. Even in June, when I noticed, I'm just stretching it forward, LCV sales is down. So that's something that definitely would be raising some slight concern, because LCV typically is used for moving goods over very short distances, etc., etc. So this is again vital. Then I looked at exports. Again, some positive numbers here. Tariff confusion and risk seems to be there, as a cloud, but 5% year-on-year growth is not bad given the circumstances. And I tried to, kind of infer, is it a China plus one strategy? Maybe it is. Do we see robust exports on all fronts? I just picked up some data from FlexConsult, which says that, the exports grew 4.2% in May 25 compared to what it was in May 24. Yeah, I have the numbers. And overall merchandise exports, but was down, right? $38.7 billion versus 39.6. Very interestingly, this tariff thing which we were discussing, FlexConsult has very clearly remarked that consumer houseware products showed 13% growth, led by exports to USA.
Correct.
And tableware and kitchenware was the star of the show. Quite interesting, and of course FIBC and other stuff. So this is on one side. And before I request Mr. Suman to offer his views, credit to micro seems to have been a tad down. Micro and small at 18.7 versus 19.9. Is this something that we need to worry about at this stage, or is it a passing blip? I don't know. But very encouraging is the asset quality improvement. So for the period ended as on March 25, it is the NPAs are at 3.6 versus corresponding 4.5%. And the share of MSME borrowers, however, is 23.3% versus 33.5%. That's something definitely would call for a discussion, and especially I'm delighted that Mr. Suman is here to speak about it. This relative reduction in share proportion of the MSME, especially the share of subprime borrowers, has come down. Now, is the share of micro borrowers gone up, is what I wanted to ask.
If I can just ask Suman sir, since we're talking about credit, the financial stability report from the Reserve Bank, their numbers that they've given separately for micro, small, medium. Micro credit is really at a very, very low growth rate. So if you could just also throw some light on what has been happening in the credit space.
Since I'm going to talk primarily on credit landscape, and I'm going to focus on the MSME sector. But overall, I think the first point that we need to take on board is that there is a very clear moderation in credit growth. So compared to last year, this time, if I remember, it was clearly well into the mid-teens credit growth last year, May end. So if you look at the latest deployment of credit, RBI data, sectoral deployment of credit, which is the last available is on May end, May 30th. There you will see that the data is saying around 9% credit growth, overall credit growth. Yeah. But the interesting point there also is that if I look at PSL of MSME, so the way we have to look at is the priority sector, because MSME loans are now all priority sector. So there, if I look at the MSME PSL, that growth is still above 18% year-on-year growth. So as of now, in my opinion, we are not able to see, that kind of slowdown. There are some signs which I will come to later. But just some statistics. So if I look at RBI, I haven't been able to look at the financial stability report so closely yet. We have to go through it thoroughly. But if I look at the RBI annual report, RBI annual report has a section on MSME. There they are saying that March 25, year-on-year growth in credit in MSME sector was 14.7%. Up from 27.3 lakh crore in March 24 to 31.3 lakh crore. So, 14.7% growth as on March is what RBI is saying. And this is banks' data. This is what banks are doing. Now, what we also do, as you know, that we have jointly published report with MSME Pulse. So we look at the data that SIDBI also publishes or provides, which covers not only the banks, but the non-banks who are lending to the commercial or the MSME sector. So if I look at that number is also fairly consistent, very similar to RBI, which includes NBFCs lending. It is 13.5%. So it has March 25 annualized growth in portfolio is 13.5%. So clearly, last 1 year, MSME lending portfolio is growing at 13 to 14%. I think even there is another special edition that SIDBI has published where they're saying even 5-year CAGR, if you take, 13% growth in MSME portfolio is being observed. And they have given, micro separately for small, for medium. And there also, it is ranging between 12 to 14%. There's not much of variation. So I think if you ask, growth is consistent. It is coming from all segments. Maybe there may be temporary blips that is coming. One thing that has happened, which I have to focus on, is that the microcredit, particularly business loans or unsecured small ticket loans, which are mostly done by small NBFCs, which are mostly done by microfinance companies. Individual loans which are given for businesses, small ticket loans, there is a decline in origination. So it's not showing in terms of a decline in portfolio, but it is showing in terms of new disbursement. So there is a negative growth in disbursements, especially in the last 2 quarters, that has happened for small ticket loans. And this is primarily because most of these loans do get disbursed by microfinance and NBFCs, and they have slowed down their disbursement. Now, one of the reasons, and if I will come to the delinquencies, maybe the higher delinquencies that they have seen. The second part is there is an overall, although RBI is saying that they would like to lighten the regulations, in general, RBI has been tightening the regulations on unsecured loans, whether it is consumer loan or business loans. So that has apparently had an impact in the last few quarters on disbursements to small ticket business loans. This is what we are saying. That's one. But overall, the statement, if I look at a little larger period, I said 5 years, yes, even 1 year, portfolio growth is still very much in double digits. And what the drivers of this, if I have to really take the overall driver, we are all aware of this, but it is important to emphasize the points, is that there is a whole push for digitalization, for new digital platforms which will ensure financial inclusion. There are not only new schemes, existing government schemes which we are aware of, like Mudra, for example. Then there are other schemes, PM Vishwakarma, PM Swanidhi. And there is a lot of action, happening through lenders like SIDBI is one of the facilitators, where all these government programs are getting implemented. So there is definitely positive policy action which is helping. One data point I wanted to share, which SIDBI has published, in the last 1 year, if I look at less than 1 crore origination, new loans, less than 1 crore, out of that, a very important data point, 55% of them are new to credit. Means they're coming to the formal lending system for the first time to take loans. And that's very significant. And I think that is happening because there is a lot of policy push to bring informal micro enterprises into the formal system. And if you ask me, one of the game changers or transformative impact of all this has been the Udyam. I think we've probably discussed it before, but Udyam Assist portal, which is managed now by SIDBI, if you track it, you will see how fast the formalization is happening. At the end of previous year, or it total registered MSME at 6.53 crores. So it's moving, very fast. And a lot of this is happening in as I said, in micro enterprises, informal micro enterprises, who may not be having GST numbers, but they may be, kind of approaching lenders. And so there are some details which are available based on which they are being registered. So I think there is definitely steady progress that is happening in terms of small credit, new credit. There is, I would say, a little bit of slowdown that is being observed. And a large part also, if I look at lender-wise, the data is suggesting that public sector banks, public institutions are lending more in small ticket. Private sector banks are cautious. They are focusing more on the larger ticket segment, like more than 1 crore to 10 crore or 10 crore to 50 crore. They haven't, done so much in terms of small ticket lending as the public sector lenders have done. So that is one part that is coming. Having said all of that, that there's initiatives, the growth happening, credit gap, and this is something you may be aware that SIDBI had put out a study report on MSME sector. So there we have put it on public domain that there is still a 30 lakh crore credit gap that we have assessed in the sector. It's not just a number, it shows that the credit gap is still very significant. There is still a lot unfinished agenda that is there, where all the stakeholders have to work collectively to make sure this credit gap it cannot be, eliminated, because there will be always some level of credit which is difficult to address because it's not that acceptable to lenders, but at least it can be minimized. So there is a lot of work. So I believe digital lending is a very major policy focus for the government, for SIDBI. We are already seeing a lot of initiatives. You may be knowing, and the government is talking about it. RBI is talking about a unified lending interface. We are talking about new UAP, that is Udyam portal-based new lending platforms, talking about those initiatives. So a lot of action is happening. Lenders are working with fintechs to make those digital platforms covering more. So overall, I would say that the policy initiatives are in the right direction to ensure that the credit gap is bridged gradually, to ensure that overall credit growth in the MSME portfolio remains in healthy double digits. I think that those things are happening. The second part which I wanted to address, which I think Narsi sir alluded to, is the health of this MSME portfolio. I can refer to the MSME Pulse data, which is in the public domain. And I'm referring to that because it includes the NBFCs also, because they are a very important stakeholder. They have large portfolios on MSME side. There, the last 5 years, there is a consistent decline in the health of the delinquency. So 90-day plus days per due, if I look at the data. Last year, March 24, it was 2.1%. It has now come to a 5-year low in March 25 to 1.8%. 1.8% for an MSME sector portfolio, I think many people believe it's fairly low. And, considering the kind of risk that's typically there, because there are many new to credit entities, I think it is very good job or a very good portfolio number that we are getting. Having said that, if we really deep dive, look at segment-wise numbers, just to share with you, less than 1 crore, the portfolio, the delinquency number is actually 3.1%. And last year it was 2.9%. So it has gone up from 2.9 to 3.1%. Lower ticket, the delinquencies are definitely higher, and there is a trending up. There is a trending up also. Particularly, I wanted to highlight less than 10 lakhs. So CIBIL is saying, CIBIL data, less than 10 lakhs, 90 plus delinquencies are at a high of 5.8%. So it is kind of trending. Last year it was 5.1. So there is clearly some stress that's there in the low ticket, particularly less than 10 lakh portfolio. So this is something that needs to be addressed, because there are a lot of new to credit customers who are coming in that segment. So if credit, health is not, if there has to be more financial awareness, the importance of financial discipline, because now it is the day of credit record, credit bureaus. So a healthy track is very necessary for these entities to really access credit. So I believe that what is required is more policy initiatives on building financial awareness. And also from the bank side, I think on lender side, more, I would say, credit monitoring is necessary. So it's not enough to give a loan and forget about it, maybe engage more with customers, handhold them. These are very important things. This may not be necessary for bigger MSMEs or bigger corporates, but it is very necessary for micro borrowers. So I think those are interventions that credit system has to do to ensure that we really have a more healthy kind of a portfolio in the low ticket micro segment.
One thing that sparked my attention was a news item, which perhaps has some implications. It is the slowing down of new real estate project launches, and very specifically drawing attention to Mumbai, which is kind of a bellwether for real estate, and anything that happens there has a cascading effect. 36% is the decline in the new launches is what the news item speaks of. And on top of it, another very interesting thing that seems to be coming up is that 59% of those launches are sub 80 lakhs. So there seems to be some shift in terms of the nature of offerings. What does it mean to new offtake in home loans? If this slowdown persists, is this a matter of concern? Because real estate has its connects with every conceivable industry. It could be paints, it could be household furniture, it could be cement, it is steel, logistics and employability for the daily wage laborers, so on and so forth. So this is a space I think definitely needs to be looked at. Maybe as the months roll forward, we will get a better feel of where it is headed. But as at this point of time, this decline is slightly larger than what can be called as modest, So there is some this thing. But counterpoint wise, if you look at the infrastructure projects under implementation, the 27 lakh crores of infra projects under implementation, with roads and transport alone taking 7.5 lakh crores nearly. That should definitely result in greater positive impact across the economy, because government spend does trigger greater MSME activity, employability, and so on and so forth. So there is a good perspective from that side, but definitely real estate is a matter of slight concern. I wouldn't raise a red flag at this stage, but definitely yes. And the question that I think Suman sir also answered was about change in the NPS, and the fact that the share of subprime loans has come down from 33.5 to 23.3 definitely is very positive. But at the same time, the slight decline in May should not continue. I'm also reading into the fact that for the first time in 44 months, bank credit to NBFC has come down slightly, very, very tiny blip. But what does it mean? It's too early to take off. Why does it happen now? Or is this the other question that I would like to, for us to debate later perhaps, is this NPA number or the bad rate number in the less than 10 lakhs cases going up because they are unsecured? So is there a trend where there is something visible, which would mean that much more rigorous underwriting methods are necessary, and we anyway have some offerings which you all know, GST-led scores, etc. are happening. And what is it that should be done to still encourage this lending, but without taking too much of a risk on? And what was very, very interesting, sir, what you said is 59% of these under 1 crore loans are from new to credit customers, which would mean that 55. Given that, and it's very interesting because the takeaway from this is that when it is a new to credit customer, obviously bureau level data is going to be zero, right? And when you do not have debt repayment experience, what do you fall back upon? You got to look at business behavior, and that's where I would say things like GST, use of bank statements, combining them, and delivering much more robust insight could go a long way in making sure that the right level of risk is being taken on for the right size also, especially in a new to credit customer. I think it was very, very relevant point that you brought up, sir.
I just wanted to the slices that we're talking about, you have to go very deeper into the analysis, because as you mentioned, there is a double-digit growth for MSME credit in general. But I was looking at the financial stability report, and for the micro segment, overall the growth in the second half was 13.3%. But for industry, which they've given separately, it was 2.8%. And the growth for services is 17.3%.
Wow.
So, when you go deeper into this, like you're talking about sub 1 crore, then you look at new to customers. If you're looking at what kind of work they're doing, even that would start, feeding into each other.
Correct. There are many nuances there, and it is not only sector-wise, as you highlighted, but also region-wise, so they are different. So some states, as you said, Telangana, we see more activity. UP, for example, UP, when you see origination data, new loans in MSMEs, a lot of these new loans are not manufacturing. There is a growth coming there. But many of them are trading companies.
Right.
Trading companies, not manufacturing. Yeah. But that's happening. Manufacturing, more focused in Gujarat, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu. These are the three states where you see more manufacturing growth. That's what the data is saying. I think the points Nasi sir mentioned, they're very relevant. That currently the economy, I think there is an optimism. We are in the process of doing, another outlook survey for the current quarter for MSMEs, and we are just waiting for the results. But it looks like there is an optimism that is continuing. I think the data, Jocata index, is also kind of suggesting that. Yes. If you look at the PMI numbers also, which has been released, has been better, I think, for June compared to May. It looks better. At the same point, I would say there are some mixed kind of signals as well. Narcissa mentioned about real estate data, which I also came across. And then look at the four-wheeler, the car data, passenger car data is not at all encouraging. I think Maruti has been talking about the lack of demand for small cars for quite some time now.
Yes.
There are certain segments of consumption which probably not doing well. The rural demand seems to be holding well because of a good monsoon this year also. And that looks positive. But I still believe that urban demand is still not in so much probably full gear. There is still kind of challenges that we are seeing in urban consumption, which probably, hopefully this year, there are certain policy supports that we are aware of. One is the income tax benefits that whatever has been provided. The second is interest rate cuts.
Yes.
We already have seen 1% interest rate cut, and slowly this is getting transmitted. So some benefits will come to consumer loans as well, housing loans, for example. So there may be some benefit coming on consumption from there, but we'll have to be watching and really looking at that part of consumption a little more carefully. This is what I felt, because it's not all good. On the consumption side, there are some signals that some parts are not doing well.
May did not have surprises. I mean, if anything, it was slightly better. We all expected it to be reflecting very near similar numbers on the Sumpoorn Index as of the last May. So in that, I think it's been in the ballpark figures. No surprises there. At the same time, we'll have to look at what June is going to bring.
I remember Narsi said that we were, last time I recall the conversation, we were worried it might dip a little bit. We were talking about 0.55 or something.
Yes.
So it's better than our expectations, it looks like.
That was first in a way. That came to my mind. Indeed.
I had attended a Maratha Chamber, Commerce and Industries here in Pune, a roundtable on manufacturing, and just day before. And the question that was asked to all the manufacturers, MSMEs in the room, is, the export uncertainties and, how are things working with the tariff and all. And each and every one of them in the room said that they're getting extremely good export orders. They're getting a lot of inquiries. So we tend to take the risks a little more heavily on our shoulders, but the industry is plugging on.
Right.
Plodding on very well.
Good.
So it's
Oh,
good.
that
And I mean, even this month's June tractor sales, see,
they're
when
very
while
good for Mahindra.
it's good from one company, Mahindra. But if you looked at Escorts Kubota, which is the next large entity, because there are typically three entities that I look at, it hasn't been all that encouraging. That's a bit of a surprise. And auto market seems to be kind of mixed bag, because even when I look at when Sir also said about personal vehicles, look at sedans versus SUVs. Again, Maruti hasn't done as well as one would have thought, but yes, the market expected a decline in the sales numbers,
Correct.
and it, by and large, the 6.5% decline is what I think I recall seeing. But vice versa, when you looked at somebody like Mahindra, while we may not be quoting them in the conversations, they have recorded fabulous numbers. So it seems to be a very kind of a mixed situation, whereas two-wheelers seems to be clearly
Holding
indicating that they are holding their ground. So LCV was a surprise for me. I didn't expect that much of a dip on the LCV side. Even when I looked at large commercial vehicles, Ashok Leyland is my very important bellwether, and wasn't very robust. You can call it fairly tepid kind of a performance.
So what are we looking forward to now?
Now, I think the commentary is fairly clear. A slight optimism definitely is warranted.
For this quarter ahead.
And we may want to tighten the whole discussion to bring certain emphasis on the credit aspects that Suman sir also spoke about, and bring that positivity out in terms of where are we seeing the growth rates. I mean, but personally asking, if we were to quote you, do you see a uptick in the MSME lending going forward now?
I think, as I mentioned before, there is a lot of policy initiatives and policy focus on maintaining or even increasing the lending on the MSME side. So we see that from Government of India through SIDBI, and I think that will continue. There are obviously will be some kind of credit, some concerns that may come in the lower ticket. So that will have to be looked into. But I don't think that there will be any major decline, because what we are seeing is that the 1 to 10 crore, that segment is still growing very strong. And as Sumita mentioned, in manufacturing, for example, there are a lot of manufacturing companies who are looking at additional credit because they're getting export orders, for example. They're unexpected, some textile orders also came, for example. So I think there is still reason to believe that we will continue to grow the MSME, the overall MSME portfolio will continue to grow into double digits. So
perhaps we will carry that one statement to say that you're optimistic about seeing higher credit growth in the MSME.
Yes, at least it will be maintained at current levels is what definitely.
Okay. Yeah, great. I mean, export wise, even yesterday we were talking to FIO and day before, and they were also very, very excited about the fact that the exports have picked up on several areas quite rapidly. And in fact, they were mentioning about taking a couple of delegations out to the US as well.
There is this UK, as you know, there is a new FTA, free trade agreement that we are getting. I think it's all finalized with UK, which will kind of implemented over a period. There is a lot of opportunity for labor-intensive industries like what we have seen for example, leather, textiles. So gems and jewelry. So there is definitely in some of these sectors, even the surveys that we are doing, there it seems the manufacturers there in those sectors are optimistic. Are optimistic about their businesses improving. A lot of it, of course, will depend on the implementation of all these trade kind of negotiations that are happening, what finally happens on the ground. But I think this kind of policy support on the trade side, we will definitely see this optimism continue.
It's a pleasure to hear from you, all your insights as well.
And it's been so very nice, exciting, and very relevant. I'm sure we'll carry this forward.
Yeah. Always a pleasure to talk to both of you, because I also kind of, it is a learning experience for me as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good day to everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.